So here I am with Major Gus, and we're talking about real estate. We're talking about real estate investment. We're talking about a whole wide range of subjects. And for many of the people that I coach, I do record these sessions, and Gus has given me that permission to do so. And he gave me a really good agenda, typical of a military man. You know, every 5 minutes it's going to change. So I will download this to my computer, upload it to YouTube, and you'll get the link. So if there's anything on it you want to review, you can. So over to you. And by the way, I did make you co-host of the meeting so you could share your screen. Do you know how to do that on Zoom?
Yes.
So if you put your cursor in the middle of the Zoom window, at the bottom, right in the middle, it'll say share screen. If you have two screens, you'll get a choice.
Should be there.
Oh, perfect.
All right. So here's the $1 million presentation. Creative and sustainable investing in Don Robin. And I'm sure you like the title from the get-go. So again, I won't go through the agenda. You had the chance to take a look at it. Obviously, please cut me out, or it's supposed to be interactive, right? So no need to wait at the end. If you feel like asking a burning question, or my Franglish is not great, you can interrupt anytime. So who is Gus? I figured you'd like to know a bit more about myself. So I thought it would be wise to start with what I value the most. What I value the most are relationships, because they provide meaning for everything else. This is I could have had a picture of a building foundation. But I like the 3 better because it needs to be watered and taken care of a bit more than a foundation. And it's something that grows with time. So so yeah, relationships are the most valuable thing to me. The second thing I value the most is doing work that matters for people who care. That's a Liberate quote from Seth Godin. That explains a lot of what drives me to work and wake up in the morning. Third is learning, always. So this is my hobby, is learning. So it's a good hobby to have, I think.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, for sure.
What's the difference between an old person and a young person?
I guess time.
Most people would say that, but the actual answer is an old person is somebody who says, I'm good, I know everything. You can't teach me anything, I know everything. And you, Gus, Major, you know old 30-year-olds, and I know young 80-year-olds. And the difference is that people who continue to learn throughout their life. I'm 68. I learned so much. I learn almost as much from my clients as they do for me. My learning curve still is going like this. And whether you're a young person like you or an older person like me, the difference between you and me and some old people is not time. It's the ability and the willingness to learn new things. If I find that you're doing something 2%, 10% better than what I do, you'll hear me say, if we develop a relationship, Gus, I'm going to steal that. That's such a good idea. I'm going to change what I do, and I'm going to adopt what you do. And I do that every day, every week, because I learn so much. I mean, I'm coaching now thousands of people in Canada, the United States, and that's why when I saw this on your screen here a moment ago, I thought, you and I are going to get along pretty well.
Yeah, good. And you're going to see throughout the presentation, I stole a few things from you already.
I'm glad.
Also, I might mention, I did quite a few research on you. Obviously, after the presentation, we'll see how we do on time, but I obviously like to learn more about you. Yes, all right. So moving on. Who is Gus? So, right, to be coherent with my first statement, here are the most valuable relationship I have. This is what gives me meaning. And there's obviously not pictures of friends and partners and colleagues, because I do, for presentation sake, but you see I have two boys, 12 and 6. They are hockey fan, they are Fortnite fan, they are outdoor fan. I love them. Je les aime avec tout mon cœur. There's my lovely wife, Lauriane. So their names, so is Liam's the younger one, and Arnaud is the older one. And Lauriane, you can see top right. That's when we were in Bruce Peninsula a few years back. And on the bottom, you see my dad. He's 81. He is a designer, and he's great. We're actually this project. We kind of worked together on this. So he's done a lot of architecture. He was blessed with being awarded a scholarship to go to Royal College of Art in London when he was younger. So he brought a lot of the European mindset, if you may, in the way I grew up. And you see my late mother, Sylvie. So my dad is Yves. My late mother is Sylvie. She passed away in March. She had multiple sclerosis. And she was also a designer. So really artistic family, I guess. So I'm I guess engineering skips a generation because my granddad was an engineer. So, and my wife, Lauriane, she's a nurse. She now is she was actually quite busy during COVID. She was actually the, how do you call that in English? It would be CDC. So, the infectious disease control advisor, basically. She has a let's say a mid-level management job as a nurse pertaining to disease control. So these are the.
You have a beautiful family.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Look, look at the red hair your older boy has and the blonde hair your younger son has. I have 5 children, Gus, 3 daughters and 2 boys. And I've got a blonde haired, blue-eyed daughter. I've got a redhead, and I've got a brunette. So I put in an order with, with God, and he gave me one of each.
Yeah. It is maybe I can mention that my oldest is not from Lauriane, my current wife. He's from a previous union. All right, so that's but we'll get back to them because they're center to all of this. So who is Gus? A bit more of the professional resume. Not exhaustive, but born and raised in Montreal. I joined the Canadian Armed Force at the age of 19. One of my good qualities is I'm quite self-aware. And as a 19-year-old man, I figured that I like girls too much, and I like socialize a bit much. So I thought that joining the Canadian Armed Force and go to RMC at 19 was the easiest way for me to get a degree. A lot of time when you take away choice, you actually create freedom. And for a lot of people, that was a big challenge, and it wasn't a big challenge for me. Either, but
Gus,
go ahead.
Can you say that again? say that one sentence again?
Pertaining to choices?
When you take away choices, you gain freedom.
Sometimes you can gain freedom, yes.
Can you I don't understand that. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's a bit counterintuitive. It's because I find that for me, the person I'm fighting the most is myself, right? I'm telling Gus, you need to get up, you need to go do a workout, you know what I mean? So for example, on the weekend, I have a choice to wake up and work out, right? Sometimes I take it, sometimes I don't. But my mind is free on the Monday morning when I wake up and I go work out, because I don't even think about it. You know, I don't have the choice. So my mind is free. And discipline to me equal freedom. Yes, because
So
then you can
just stop there for a moment.
Yeah.
Did you come up with that yourself, or is that somebody else?
So what I took from a book that's awesome, from Jocko Willink, forgot the name of the book. He's an ex, I can send you the link if you want afterwards. I can take a note. Jocko Willink, he's an ex Navy SEAL, and he discussed in his book how his disciplined life granted him freedom. I kind of rephrased it, and to bring it to my own situation is a lot of times when I don't have a choice, weirdly enough, it provides me freedom, and freedom sometimes it's a bit of maybe mental space. It's not necessarily physical. I don't have to think about it. You know what I mean? It's just the way it is. I feel the same too. So I went to a private school as a kid. My parents were quite, did a lot of sacrifice because they were not rich at all. They were, let's say, bottom middle class. But I had a uniform on, right? And weirdly enough, the fact that to not have to choose what you wear every morning basically gives you freedom, because, you know, I look at my wife, she spends 10 minutes trying 5 different outfits in the morning. I don't think about that. So that's why I kind of, I could relate to the book I talked to you about. And that's why I kind of paraphrased it. It's not the same thing, discipline equals freedom. But to me, that's how I could relate to that.
You know, I think what you have just said is something really important, and I'm not sure I completely understand it, but I do understand it enough to know that I think this is important. And what I'm going to try and do, I have to think about it for a couple of days, but what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and incorporate some of that without necessarily having to join the Canadian military or become a Navy SEAL. So the question that it immediately raises in my mind is, you know, because I'm coaching so many people, Gus, a lot of them, you know, as typical entrepreneurs, they have 2 or 3 really good ideas a month. And what I tell them is that if you follow every good idea that pops into your head, you'll never get anything done. You know, so your life is going to look like this.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't have to tell you, the shortest path between 2 points is a straight line. And if your life is doing this, you're never going to get to your destination. So I want people to improve their focus, and that requires discipline. And I'm just wondering whether I can adapt something you just said to help them. I don't know yet, but maybe you could think about it too.
Oh, okay. I'm going to give you this is a tangent. It's not on my slide, but I've studied a complex adaptive system for my personal benefit, and basically design, but not applied design applied to organization, not necessarily like a building design, right? Like design in so the complex or the complex adaptive theory, what I could tell you to tell your client is you need to be conscious of the are you in a divergent mode of thinking? Divergent mode of thinking allows you to be creative, right? There's nothing worse than being in a meeting doing brainstorming, and there's people that are thinking divergent, like they're supposed to be in the brainstorming, and there's people thinking like convergent thinking. So like how is that going to work, you know? So you can't do both at the same time. What's really important is to be conscious that let's say you would want to be a divergent thinker. So you basically take away all the constraints in the problem. You know, like a civil engineering, you increase the degree of freedom, right? That's divergent thinking. But that alone is not enough. Then you need to switch to a convergent thinking. Convergent thinking, which basically once you've eliminated a lot of constraints, you need to add them back in to make it work, to dig down and try to come up with something concrete. And maybe that applies to what you said. If you're always a divergent thinker, you might be a good artist, but that's really let's say your creative side. But you need to be an accountant at some point and converge on an idea or a concept.
I got it. Thank you.
So I've been, so I've been in over 17 years of service as a Royal Canadian engineer. I did my undergrad in civil engineer and my postgrad in structural engineering.
I did the same.
You did the same? Yeah.
I did my civil engineering degree at McGill University. And then I did a Master's of Engineering Science at the University of New South Wales in Sydney. And then I did my PhD in urban economics at the Australian National University in Canberra.
That's cool. Really cool. I'm gonna ask you more question about that later on. Hopefully we're gonna have time. So did a tour in Afghanistan. Basically help build the road Aina, and so I was there's a movie about that, not what I did, but it's called Route Aina. And we were building roads and building forward operation base. Basically, I help the troop fight, live, and move. So basically, building small fortresses. But the challenge was mostly like real life support, right? Like how do these people showers, how they cook, and how do you allow for an helicopter to land in the middle of a camp? How do you the comms towers and all that good stuff? So it was applied engineering, rudimentary, let's say, dealing with Afghanis contractor. And all the good stuff. So I did that in 2010, 2011. After that, I went, did my postgrad, and then I went as a subject matter expert as a structural engineer, but for deployed ops. And the picture top right, I couldn't find my picture from Afghanistan and their home, so I didn't put any. But this is Wainwright, Alberta. So basically, in 2 weeks, we were building, let's say, a 5,000 man city. With power, you know, all the fire safety that's required. There was all the obviously living accommodation, kitchen, all that stuff in the middle of the field. So that was really my focus. And then I moved on more on the institutional side of the business. Became the Office of Primary Interest, let's say, for program and finance for the base in Kingston. So what I mean by program is a collection of projects, maintenance, construction, name it, including RMC actually in Kingston, and then the latest, almost the latest I did was in the past 3 years. That's where I would say that the magic happened for me in terms of reaching, let's say, a nexus in my professional career. I was the commander of real property operation in Montreal. So you see the middle picture, the big picture is a part of the base there. So it was all basically I was in charge of all D&D real property in the greater area of Montreal. So that's not just a base. There's over 200 buildings, a replacement cost of $1 billion. I had 110 employees, 100 of which were actually civil servant, public servant. They're not military, so they're unionized from actually several different unions. And what was magic for me is the scope of the responsibility, or the breadth of it. So in my organization, I had people, I had material manager, I had procurement people, I had HR people to hire people and do all the HR stuff. I had finance people. I had all the imaginable the tradesman or technician, like plumber, carpenter, electrician, HVAC. We have also a central heating plant over there, so I had operators, roads and grounds. It's like the closest you can imagine is a small city, because when you're on a base in Montreal, you're not in Montreal, you're in Canada. It's like a reserve, like a native reserve. So we don't need building permits. We try to, but we don't necessarily need to be to follow municipal. You know what I mean? It's the rules don't apply. We strive to be good corporate citizens, but my point is legally we're not bounded by this. So that means that the horizontal construction, like the roads, the sewage, everything is our responsibility. And again, and there's also part of this organization, there's also architects, engineers, project managers. And obviously there's the whole, like, comme les urbanistes, the planning section, the whole, and actually that's where I work the most. That's the people I work the most, the planning and the engineering cell. That's where I put most of my time. Actually the HR, but the yeah. So that was a big step up. So I'm really grateful that they have invested in me, Canadian Armed Forces, and provided me this opportunity to really develop myself. I would argue that I probably did an MBA on the spot in 3 years. With the scope of it. There's also obviously environmental people, which is quite relevant to our discussion today. Some of the projects I did, I just put a small one, but you're gonna get the sense of what kind of project I like. So the bottom picture on the left is kind of a linear picture. You see it? And basically this used to be a road that was needed to, we needed to do to redo completely the sanitary or the sewage, and I thought it would be great to just close the road and make it a green space, a linear green space, and we actually saved money doing that. So the rainwater was better, we're better able to capture. So we saved money on the catch basin. We saved, basically, it was a big win. And it sounds like a no-brainer for most people, but the thing is, in D&D, that kind of stuff never happens. Like, you know what I mean? Deciding that and this is a really, like, that the scale doesn't show, but these are really, really long buildings. This is like a 800 meter, probably. But you'll find a team of sustainability and thinking outside the box, creative, trying to be creative. That's a team throughout. I guess the presentation. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I agree with you, Gus, that a lot of people think that becoming more green, more environmentally aware is going to cost more. But in my experience, it costs less. For example, many of the subdivisions that I've designed and built over the years do not have stormwater pipes. They have swales that are full of living things. And it manages the stormwater much better. It controls it much better. You reduce the flooding and the downstream effects, and it's cheaper. So there's a lot of things that we can do to improve the environment that are actually just almost common sense. But the problem that we have is that, I don't have to tell you this, that our engineering community, our environmentalist community, our architects, they're stuck with doing things the same way over and over and over again, just because they know it. And when you say to them, no, we're going to design a roadway that's completely different, you know, the city engineers will kind of freak out. C'est la même chose en français, freak out, you know.
Yeah.
And so, you know, what you're showing here, that linear park down there, is really extraordinary, and I recommend you for it.
All right, thank you. And to add on to your point, it's even worse in the public sector, because we squeeze the consultant quite a bit to get cheaper price. So when you squeeze a consultant, typically what happens is they fall back to their comfort zone, and they give you cookie cutter solution that are oftentimes disappointing, in my humble opinion. Yeah. All right. Okay. So no, actually, so basically, really grateful. I had the best professional development I could ever ask for 3 years. Basically, being a CEO of a mid-sized company with $50 million, you know, let's say expense. So I can say I'm selling anything, so there's not a lot of income, but but right now what I'm doing is actually I'm building on those skills, and I'm the J5 in the military, means it's the planning function. So I'm the national real property operation business planner, and I report to the J5 directly, who is the lead planner. Yeah. So, but I started 2 weeks ago, so can't tell you much about this job yet. All right, so a bit more hectic. So I thought it would be interesting to give you a bit of my interests. What am I interested in? So top left, I decided to choose this one, but I was quite fortunate again to have had the chance to visit and travel a lot with work. So these are a multinational band of brothers and sisters that were gathered on the shore of Ingolstadt. That's a city in Germany. It's actually where the headquarters of Audi is, and there's an engineering school, a NATO engineering school there. So I put this one, but basically I've had the chance to travel a lot, and I love traveling. My wife and I, so I put Barbados at the bottom because my wife completely fell in love with Barbados. not too long ago, and it might be relevant to our discussion today because that might be a end game type of dream to be able to afford something there and actually monetize it. Projects. So I'm fueled by projects. Top right, you see a BMW that actually 2004 that actually has a Corvette engine in it. It's a Frankensteiner type of deal. I was able to put it together and go racing on it. You see the small picture while I use it. The point is I like cars, I like racing, but it's more that I need projects. That's what drives me. The bottom right you might not see because of my face, depending on where you put the little screen, but space. I'm really fascinated with the new space age. There is I believe a new era for the space exploration, and the big difference now it has been privatized. I'm sure you're quite familiar with Jeff Bezos, the richest man alive. He has a company called Blue Origin that he privately funds to the extent of $1 to $2 billion a year. And obviously there's SpaceX, Rocket Lab. There is the grassroots of what I think is going to be the great space race. So I'm really fascinated with that. And my fascination with that led me into Tesla. So for the past 3 years, I've researched the business, the company quite extensively. I could speak to you about Tesla for 2 days. I won't bug you with that. One of the points is I was fortunate in understanding the company, understanding their competitive edge or their moat, right? A year or two ago, when the stock was below $200. So, and the reason I'm telling you that too is going to give you a gauge too. I'm a bit tolerant to risk. I like to be convinced, but in this case, I loaded up a year and a half ago. I loaded up my credit line and bought Tesla stock. Fortunately, I mean, I basically invested what I was willing to lose. But I can tell you that if you're following the news, the stock has 9x since in the past 18 months.
So just so you know, when you bought the stock, there were billions of dollars of short sellers who were
exactly
that it was going to collapse. So what you did you tell your wife you were doing it?
After the fact.
Because let me just tell you a quick story. Let's imagine that your name is not Gus. Your first name is Chris, and so Chris goes up to Queen Isabella and says, "Hey, Queen Isabella, I got this great idea. Give me 3 of your best ships and some of your best pilots and sailors. I'm going to go that way. I think that's the shortcut to China." But it might not be. It might be that the oceans are limitless and we're going to sail off heading west and we're never going to be seen again. But it's a great idea because it could work. And your name would, of course, be Christopher Columbus, and that would be Queen Isabella of Portugal. And you really have to be crazy. And of course, as you know, Gus, you're a student of humankind. Men are basically crazy. Because I can tell you, I do a lot of coaching, and of course, a lot of women are coming to me for coaching. They're interested in business and real estate, and no woman, I don't think I've ever met anyway, would ever come up with a crazy idea like that. They would say, I want to buy a house. And I would like to put an apartment in. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Very simple model. You animate the building a little bit. You make a little bit more return because instead of having one source of income, you've got 2. And then I could teach them some basic things like adding a tech package, adding multimedia, that sort of thing. That's a very, very good model. It's very simple, easy to understand. It requires attention to detail. Women are good at that. But if I told my wife that I'm going to stock up on Tesla, I'm going to bet, you know, the equivalent of my house on
No, no,
Tesla stock.
it was not the equivalent.
Well, it was your line of credit, you know, and if you lose that money, it's, you know, you have to make it again. So, but that is the nature. You know, we have a very interesting species, and the fact that we have this dichotomy between way men think and women think is a very good thing, because the men tend to be the wedge. You know, they're crazy. They'll go out and say, look, I think if we go north, we're going to find more land and more game and more food. And so humans came out of Africa. Again, that's a crazy thing to do, because it's a long way from Africa to, say, Germany, or what was then just unexplored huge forests that went from France to Russia and Siberia. So this is a very powerful lesson, and I salute you for that.
Yeah, and actually that's a lesson that I've learned the hard way the first time around. So the reason I did the move is basically I was finding there was a huge, and before that date, I had never bought a single stock in my life. You know, I had bought like mutual funds, you know what I mean, like everyone else, but I never picked a stock before. But after researching the company for a year, to me, the disconnect between the market and what the specialists were saying and what my findings were so big that like there's something wrong there. The disconnect is too big.
I can tell you that I do not recommend buying mutual funds or tax-free savings accounts. I do not. You know, life insurance, no. I mean, you might have term insurance, Gus. You might have some term insurance. You have a young family, a beautiful family. You want to take care of them. Term insurance for somebody, I assume you don't smoke cigarettes or anything else. And, you know, you don't drink too much, and you get regular exercise, obviously. So, you know, for a person like that to get $500,000 or $1 million worth of term life insurance is very, very inexpensive. But life insurance as a product is an absolute horse manure when it comes to providing any investment you know, protection. And the same thing I think is true for mutual funds. Like, you know, every mutual fund salesman on this earth promises you, Gus, Bruce, I'll get you 8, 10, 12%, and then 5 years later you say, what happened to my 8, 10, or 12%? I got 2% if you're lucky. Gus, yeah. I have an NHL pension from my days back in the National Hockey League. And if I had taken the same amount of money I put into my NHL pension and put it in my mattress, it would be doing as well 25 years later. Like, it is literally the same amount of money in cash as it was 25 years ago. What, you know, Gary Bettman is the commissioner. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about. He's the commissioner of the National Hockey League, and he's got a bunch of his friends in Bermuda who run the National Hockey League's insurance and pension fund. And they might know something about smoking cigars and drinking rum, but they know nothing about running a pension fund. And our pension fund suffered a 27% decrease in 2008, 2009, 2010. And then during COVID, it suffered another, I think, 20% drop. And so if you look at that, if you just took the same cash, if you had a few $100,000 and you stuck it in that pension fund, you know, and don't forget, there's not just people like me, but think about all the players who have money in that fund. It's been really, really bad.
Yeah, no, for sure. And what pushed me to believe in myself is when I got back from Afghanistan 2011, I got really interested about economics and I got interested in Bitcoin. I thought it was really cool, the concept of a decentralized currency, which could not be controlled by any government. So the concept of it, I found really appealing. And if you remember, that was post-crisis where the quantitative easing by the Fed was at its maximum, except for now. So the Bitcoin was at $3 when I wanted to play with it, you know, and buy maybe a few $1,000s. I decided to buy about. Got a good time, but I had a heart attack 7 years later when I found out it was worth 20 or 10 grand each Bitcoin. You know, I could have had probably 1,000 Bitcoin. So I said, Gus, next time you're really digging something, and you know, believe in yourself. So that's why I did the.
Well, that's a very important thing that you just said, Gus. That do not substitute anyone else's judgment, not even your coach, for your own. You know, you are the pilot of your own life, and my wife told me this a long time ago. And as soon as she said, Bruce, don't substitute anyone else's judgment for your own, my life got better.
Yeah, no, definitely. So enough on this. But I like Tesla's mission. Again, it goes to the sustainable. Their mission statement, which is the first thing I look at a company, which is their mission statement, is to accelerate the advance of sustainable energy. So so I'm a shareholder and a believer, and actually a owner. So yeah. So I wanted to give you just an outlook to see where I'm at in terms of asset and liability. I'm missing a few liability like cars. I just kept the real estate bits. But so I own, top right is a triplex I bought when I got back from Afghanistan. That was my that's what I bought 10 years ago. So I just got a remortgage on it not too long ago. So it's pretty, it's approximative. I did that by, it's not exactly, but it's probably 80%, you know what I mean? Like I have probably 20% equity, so I cannot do much with that, this one. Home number one is my dad's home, which I own, but he lives in there, obviously. Well, the cool thing about this is, and you're gonna see, this home was built more than 150 years ago, and the situation we're in is that my dad and myself are in love with the property, but there's a lot of money to be put, and so we might be selling it in the next few years, but the buyer is going to be more important than the price. That's the point I wanted to make with that, and you're going to understand why. Because yeah, so we want, since we care so much, it's been in the family for 150 years. I cannot, yeah, go ahead.
So if I'm going to do any coaching with you guys,
Yeah.
you know, I would ask you and your dad to not sell anything or change your strategy without including me, just because there are things that we are doing in real estate that is really extraordinary. You know, when I retired from the University of Ottawa, where I was teaching entrepreneurship at the Telfer School of Management, you know, I was turning 60, 61, I think. And I knew I wanted to retire from the university and do something different. My dad, before he passed away, said to me that men should never retire. It's a terrible idea, that all of your friends, even if they are fairly young, once they retire, their brain turns to mush. I mean, how much TV do you want to watch? I mean, really? And you know, and I'm such a bad golfer. How much golf do you really want to play? I mean, if you have to play golf every day, it's a job. And you know, so I actually said to myself, I'm going to find something else to do. And I went out and I got myself a life coach, actually, and she was really tremendous. And after a few months, she said, you know, Bruce, I think you could be a coach. And I said, I'll never be a life coach. I don't know anything about being a life coach, and I don't think I'd be very good at it. She said, no, that's not what I'm talking about. You know something about real estate. You've built 1,200 homes. You've built dozens of office buildings and shopping plazas. You've done how many subdivisions? You've got all kinds of education in it. You built an arena, for Christ's sake. And so she said, you might be a good real estate investment and business coach. And I thought about it for like maybe a day, maybe 2 days. And I said, ooh, I really like that idea. And so I hung up my shingle, you know, I said, hey, here I am, Prof Bruce. I'm a real estate investment and business coach, not really knowing if anybody would want any coaching from me. And then I looked like, I did some research like you would do, maybe not as thorough as you, mind you, but I looked at what other coaches were doing in this field, and what they were doing was terrible. They were teaching people to flip houses, which one of the young coaches I talked to, he was based in Winnipeg. Unfortunately, he's a young man, he passed away, but I asked him, what does he charge for coaching? And he charged, you know, ridiculous amounts of money, really, really extraordinary amounts of money, like $60,000 to teach people how to flip houses. And, you know, I don't charge very much. And then I said to him, I said, how many of the people that you teach to flip houses are successful? And he said, oh, 94% of them fail. And I said, 94% fail. I said, really? That's, you know, it really didn't actually surprise me, but that's a pretty high failure rate. If I had a failure rate like that, I would get out of coaching. And so, you know, I started to focus not on, you know, I'm not the kind of coach who can help you say, learn how to replace 4 gas meters with 3 gas meters and save $75 a month. That I can't really help with. You know, that's a property management function. But the stuff that we're doing in animation, adding new revenue streams to both residential and commercial property, is really extraordinary, and it's having tremendous impact. And so one of the things I'd ask you not to do is sell this. This home is very special to your family. It's been with you for over 100 years. So one of the questions I would ask you, and we would work on that, is what kind of animations we could add to it that would make it attractive enough to keep it.
Yeah, totally. And actually, because I watched a few of your videos, and actually I have an animation plan for this property, which is quite simple. But the thing I wanted to highlight with what I said is, if we were to sell, the buyer would be more important than the price.
I completely understand that, and we should kick that ball down the road. I want to hear the rest of your presentation.
Exactly. So asset liability. So home 1, there's no mortgage. Home 2, there's 200K worth of equity ish. And you'll see that this is the house I live in is cost me, you know, 450K, and it's 15 minutes away from Montreal. So it's a nice home, and it's a really nice neighborhood. Actually, because I move a lot as a military, right? So my goal is always to be the poorest on the street. All right, I want to be the poorest guy on the street. That's my goal. So I achieved it quite a bit because the development is really, it's right next to a golf. Anyways, really good location. So stocks, as we discussed, there's a lot of Tesla in there. The key point with stocks is, as you know, how much I bought them. There's a lot of tax inertia in there, and cash 50K. So if you had maybe I don't know, 50K worth of cars in the liability part, would be closer to the actual reality. Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
So Gus, can you borrow against those stocks?
I would like to return you the question. I would like to.
Because to me, you know, mostly I teach people to buy and hold, not to buy and flip. So I mean,
there's no, sorry.
There's
all right, just to be clear, nowhere in the presentation or in the project as we go along the 6 month, flipping is zero.
Zero.
It's not for me.
So as you know, you hope to buy good location, like being the poorest on the street, and over time you hope it goes up in value. And then your mortgage goes down, right? So over time,
Yep.
you're opening up space to refinance. N'est-ce pas?
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
And most of the realtors and coaches and bankers will tell you, Gus, you should have a 30-year amortization because you can save some cash that way. That is a terrible idea. What I do is I tell, if you have a 30-year amortization period, it takes you 30 years to pay off your mortgage. If you have a 17-year amortization period, the mortgage is going down much faster. And so everybody I coach, we look at that and we try and build a model where the amortization is as short a period as we can, reduce the amount of interest, drop the principal as fast as we can, open up space. And when you do that, like to me, when I look at this asset and liability, it's good. You're worth about $825,000, which is great. But I think if I got a chance to do some coaching with you, we can probably triple that, and it wouldn't take very long, and maybe even quadruple it. But I think we can triple it quite quickly. How old are you now? I'm guessing about 35.
Not far, 36.
36. So the goal would be to see if we could, in the next 4 years, do something like this. Just give me a second here. So, I believe in setting goals. So maybe we could take that top line and multiply it by 3, probably more than 3, probably 4 or 5 times it by the time you're 40. And at the same time, we're going to be really focused on the debt side too. I think with your skills and with some models that are coming into my mind as I learn more about you, I suspect, Gus, if you want to, it's up to you, of course. If you want to, you have the ingredients to build something really big. You could create a business that could do good work. It could embrace really revolutionary models, which I'll teach you how to do that. And I have they're all men. I have about 20 men that I'm coaching who are going to build billion-dollar companies. Some of them might be multi-billion dollars, but I have a few, about 20, and they're all young men like you. They're all in their 30s or 40s. These are really, really special people. I mean, if I do get a chance to coach you, you'll meet them. And you'll swap stories, war stories, what worked, sometimes what didn't work. But these are people who have the capabilities. And then I have hundreds of others, in fact, now it's in the thousands of others who are putting together 4 or 5 residential rentals, making $10,000, $12,000, $15,000 a month, and they're good. There's nothing wrong with that. So that's something that you have to think through, and maybe with Lorraine as well, to what scale you would like to go. But you have the potential. I've only known you now for 59 minutes, but you have the potential to be one of those 20.
Okay, great.
If you want.
Good to hear.
But
obviously, so basically, I came to the realization that I was working with a lot of good consultant, had lots of good feedback. Actually, it's being humble is a value that I cherish, but you also need to recognize success when you have it, right? And I've done really good in the past 3 years. I've dealt with top of the line consultants that I've kept good relationship with, recently I told myself I should put those skills because I do this for you, right? For Canadian population, right?
Yep.
Like my creative solution basically saves you tax money, right?
Yep.
So I said it'd be interesting, and if you've seen also my other projects, I've done a lot of woodworking too. I didn't put it in there, but all my hobbies and stuff were in area where I didn't have really skills. Like the fun part for me was to learn these skills, right? Like a mechanic, like I learned that myself, right? To do engines and but this time I said, you know what? Like you have, like you forget the skills that you have until you meet someone that doesn't have them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, okay, yeah, there's gaps in here and there. Then I realized it might be a good time, like especially that weirdly enough, the fact that I live 3 days of the week in Ottawa gives me more free time, basically, right? And I spend 4 days in Montreal with the family, work from home. But during those 3 days in Ottawa, I can really work until 11, and I don't hear, you know what I mean? No one cares. So I thought the timing was really good. All right, my understanding of the macro environment. So right from the get-go, I can see that I didn't follow the timeline, but so far, are we good on time?
I'll say you didn't.
Okay, so this is a bit important to understand where I'm coming from. My understanding of the macro, we could have a beer and talk about this for at least a day. I try to keep it to the biggest, most relevant thing. US Fed, I talked to you about the quantitative easing that happened in 2010 that got me interested in what is store of value, like, you know, like typically was gold, right? And in 2010, this innovative cryptocurrency that was Bitcoin. Missed the boat on that one. But the fact is 2010, 11, it was quantitative easing. Basically, the US self-financing, buying treasury bills, and basically increasing the quantity of money on the market. So we didn't see inflation in some portion of the economy in the past 10 years, but in the other portion, we did see it. So my point is, right now, the Fed is the United States have never been that much indebted, but also like the Fed has never printed that much money. So having cash or cash equivalent right now is a bit scary. You want to own either companies, stocks, basically, or in my opinion, real estate. Reason being, it's going to take a while before we get out of this one. And I don't foresee interest rate going up in the midterm. And if the next 10 years are somewhat similar on the real estate side as the past 10 years, I think it's not a bad idea to get in now. I won't go too much into detail, but I really, again, there's a continuity and some kind of a coherence throughout my presentation about sustainability. I'm a true believer that oil is dead. We're going to need it for a while, but as an investment class, it's completely dead. I've never invested in oil, but now it's, you know, that's where the picture, you know, so oil rig lift to me equals Blockbuster, Nokia, and Kodak, which are all companies that were disrupted with new technologies. The pandemic is a catalyst for disruptive technology. I think we're seeing, yeah, go ahead.
So, by the way, this is the first time ever that somebody has made a presentation to me.
Oh, yeah?
First. And I'm really enjoying it. But that's not what I wanted to say. I just say I'm enjoying it. It's not just disruptive for tech, it's disruptive in many other ways. The pandemic has opened up extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary opportunities in real estate, in industrial, in industry. Right now, every contractor you know, every HVAC guy you know, every electrician you know, every plumber you know, everybody on the industrial side of Canada's economy and the US economy is working 110%. Everybody is flat out. We are going to onshore production for incredible amounts of stuff. We're not going to rely on China anymore. China is a very unreliable partner, and that's putting it in its best light. We don't want to rely on China for PPE, personal protective equipment. Obviously, that makes sense for ventilators and that sort of thing. But I can tell you, because I'm doing a lot of this coaching, that we are working on real estate models that I would like to show you that are extraordinary. Everybody on this planet right now is going to be a gigpreneur. Do you know what a gigpreneur is?
Yes.
Yeah, and right now I have young men, they're all men so far, who are buying old industrial warehouses, dividing them up into workshops, and they're leasing them as fast as they can build them, because, you know, I leased one on Sunday. Today is Tuesday. I leased one on Sunday to a very nice man. His name is Joel Rabideau, and Joel, you know, leased a workshop. You know, I have many of them. These are small workshops, 500, 600, 800 square foot workshops. He makes beautiful custom furniture. I've got another one that I rented out a few weeks ago to an artist. She makes furniture out of wood pallets. Who knew? Very successful. And what's really neat about her business, Gus, is that she gets her material for free. You can go to any freight company in Canada, in the United States, in Montreal, in Ottawa, and they'll have wood pallets piled up in their yard in the back. They're just waiting for the winter to come. They're going to burn them. And she'll go and say, you know, can I get some of your wood pallets from you? And the guys, you know, say, yeah, how many do you want? You know, take as many as you want. They're free, just because otherwise it's just a cost to get rid of them. And then I've got another one that I rented to an Irish carpenter, another one that went to a lathe operator. He does tech prototyping. I mean, my wife and I, we own some significant amount of real estate, and I got into this micro workshop, you know, area 6 years ago, because I predicted that people would not be happy in their jobs. And then all of a sudden I found 8 million Canadians are unemployed. They're on the CERB benefit, and 40 million Americans. And all of a sudden, all of the people that I'm coaching, and if I get a chance to coach you, people like that who have these workshops, these micro workshops, we're filling up 80,000, 100,000, 200,000 square foot warehouses with these micro workshops. You know, like I said, from 500 maybe to 1,000 square feet. And it's interesting. It's interesting. You know, I'll walk you through the model, but not today, because we're going to run out of time. But it's interesting that there's another thing that, as an environmentalist and a sustainability expert, that you'll like. Yesterday, or sorry, on Sunday, when I was talking to Monsieur Rabideau about he said, Bruce, you have a beautiful loft upstairs in this building of yours. I said, yes, we do. He said, what are you doing with it? I said, nothing, it's empty. I haven't thought of what I'm going to do with it. He said, can I build a 2-bedroom apartment for my wife and I up there? So he wants to live in the loft and work underneath in his workshop. So people today, you know, you're working from home. People today do not want to get into their Tesla in the morning, you know, and drive through Montreal traffic for an hour to go into an office building with terrible lighting, fluorescent lighting, windows that don't open, bad air, no privacy, you know, COVID-19 everywhere. And then at the end of the day, go back down this god-awful elevator, get into your Tesla and go another hour. You lose 2 hours a day doing that. And even with Tesla, you need some kind of power, right? I mean, there's some kind of energy use going on. So what people really want today, and it's a model that I would like to walk you through. Again, the details of it would take too long for today, where people can live and work in the same place. And we are developing huge buildings in Canada, the United States now. I mean, the guys that I coach, they're much younger than me, so, you know, they can do a bigger scale. You know, my scale is this size, because I don't really want to do a lot of it. You know, it's too much work. I like coaching. But some of these young people that, you know, they're talking about millions of square feet of micro workshops and micro suites or studio apartments or 1 or 2 bedroom apartments so you can live and work. And then think about the environmental savings, not only the time savings, that you don't have to fight 2 hours of Montreal traffic every day, but think about the environmental savings. And I'm going to tell you one more thing. Back when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, he had a comedian, I've forgotten his name, go on television and talk to Canadians about taking the 1-ton challenge. I think his name was Rick Mercer. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he's a comedian. I don't think he's very funny, but some people do. So I'm just watching TV and I see Rick Mercer come on the TV. It's a commercial, and he says, take the 1-ton challenge, how you can reduce your carbon dioxide output by 1 ton. And I said, I'm a Canadian, I'll take that challenge. You know, like you, I'm an engineer, I'll take that challenge. So I actually went on the Government of Canada's website. And I went through this website, which was absolutely banal in every way. And the only recommendation I could find was that when your kids are brushing their teeth, turn off the hot water. And I said to myself, well, that will save a few micrograms of CO2 a year. But what happened to the other, 1.99999 tons? So what I did, listen to this. What I did, I should find it for you somewhere on my computer. I created a utility. It's still online somewhere. I created a utility. It was a spreadsheet where you could put in the type of car you drive, a Ford Fiesta or a Bentley, any number of cars, how far you had to drive to work every day. And when you live closer to work, what that does. And it's interesting that if you're driving a Ford Fiesta and you go from 30 kilometers to say 10 kilometers from work, so you just move a little bit closer to work, you will save about 1.7 tons of CO2 a year. That's a lot. I'm not talking about the time savings, just talking about the environmental protection. And if you're driving a Bentley and you did the same thing, you'll save 7 tons of carbon dioxide. 7 tons. So you could put in the type of car you drive, how far from work. Now, if you could do this, where you can work from home, or you could, even if you're a maker, a creator, and you could have a workshop and a home. Now, listen to this. I have people, and these are, many of them are females. I have women who like the model, but they're afraid of the big scale, right? So what they're doing, you'll get a kick out of this. So I have some women who I'm coaching. They buy a house, they put a basement apartment in, and in the backyard they build a workshop, so that they can rent to somebody who. About a few weeks ago, one of my female clients, her name is Ms. Gagnon. Ms. Gagnon, she has about a 450 square foot workshop in the backyard. It's very, very pretty. She rented it to a lady who teaches yoga. So she's not really a creator or a maker, but she does teach yoga. And she runs 3 or 4 classes a day in her backyard workshop. She used to make $25 to $30 an hour working for somebody else. So listen to what happened to this yoga teacher. Now she's got her own little backyard studio. And she does, say, 3 classes a day for 13 ladies at a time. And she charges $15. So if you multiply it, 13 ladies times, I think 15 times 3 is $585 a day. And she works 5 days a week. And she works 50 weeks a year. She's making about $145,000 a year with her workshop. So she went from making 31, this is a single lady, this yoga teacher, she's 31 or 32, she's got 2 beautiful children, she's a lovely girl, and she was making $31,000 a year. Now she's renting the upstairs home for herself and her 2 children. She's using the workshop. She's gone from making $31,000 a year to making $145,000 a year. So now I'm coaching, wait a second, I'm coaching Lynn, Ms. Gagnon, and I'm coaching this yoga lady, and her name is Anne. And so, Anne, I said, Anne, how many classes can you teach a day? She said, yoga is a very physically demanding thing. She said 3, maybe 4, but probably only 3 a day. So what are you doing with the studio the rest of the day? She said, well, nothing. So I said, do you know any other yoga instructors? She said, lots. I said, why don't you invite them to come into the studio when you're not using it, and they can teach their own classes? She said, ooh, could I do that? Why not? So she's now making over $200,000 a year, of which about 70,000 or 80,000 is generated because she's charging the rent. But wait, for Lynn, who owns the house, the basement apartment, and the workshop, she gets a rent on that workshop, including a percentage rent. Do you know what a percentage rent is?
But I'm guessing it's a percentage of the income.
Exactly. It's, that's a commercial concept. It's a commercial concept. Like if you and I were running a restaurant, our landlord would say, okay, you're going to pay this amount in rent and you're going to pay a percentage of your revenues too. It's a very common thing in commercial renting, but I brought the commercial concept to residential, and we put in 4% for Lynn. So 4% of think about that, of over 200,000 of income for Lynn is a hell of a lot of money. And so her rent on her backyard workshop, do you know what a cap rate is?
Yeah,
Her cap rate on
capitalization rate
is insane, her capitalization rate. So there are lots and lots of really interesting models that when you look at them, they work perfectly well on a small scale, but there are people like you, frankly, with the skills to take that and really blow that up into a big model. In a place like Montreal, I mean, if you were comfortable, I mean, obviously, French, can you imagine what you could do with a model like that in Montreal? It would be absolutely, because, the people in Canada who are the most inventive and creative, in my opinion, are the Francophones in Quebec. The rest of Canada, we just want to go working for the government and put our time in and get a pension and then die. But the people in Quebec, they're, imagine Monsieur Bombardier or whatever his name was, who started, in the middle of nowhere in Quebec with a machine that would run over the snow. It was called a snowmobile. Nobody knew. So, the Power Corporation and, of course, Cirque du Soleil and so many other things have come out of Quebec. It's extraordinary. So I think a model like this in Montreal would be a killer model, but that's for another time.
It's quite interesting. It broadens quite a bit what I had in mind.
So we're going to run out of time because really I had budgeted an hour for this. This is a typical clarity call. So let's see if we can maybe tie it up in the next 13 minutes. Is that okay?
That's easy.
I have to go. I'm scheduled to see one of my daughters perform tonight. She's an actress. And it's a virtual thing, but it's coming up at 5, so I should really get going at 4:30 if that's okay.
That's perfect.
Okay.
So obviously, I'm quite open to anything you're going to be bringing me in terms of ideas. This what I'm showing you is the one I had, right? So it's not. That's not where the train stopped, right? I guess it could be the first stop. The project, why Don Robin? Yeah, okay, next. So I'm sure you know the picture.
Yep.
Why? All right, I'm gonna start by the goal. I'd like to retire, or at least have a retirement. Like you, it's funny you said that. I'm a true believer. My dad worked until he was 75. I'm a true believer in never stopping working.
Yeah, change what you do, but keep going.
Yeah, the point is I'd like to retire in bracket in Don Robin, some location. I like where it is located, in terms of closeness to Ottawa and all that good stuff. So I'd like to secure a lot in the short term at a nice location in Dunrobin. And why invest there? And obviously I'd like to monetize that lot before I decide to live on it. I'm gonna go quickly, but so that was the goal. I wanted to why I like Don Robin with all the pandemic, people are going completely nuts for outdoors, like nice location. It's close to Carling campus. It's close to the Techno Park or Tech Park. I'm not sure how to say that. You have basically nature 20 minutes away from downtown. Nothing you didn't know, but I'm explaining to you my rationale. The other thing I like about Ottawa is, yes, it's expensive, but compared to other capital, like Western capital,
oh yeah,
it's cheap.
It's cheap.
So yeah, so that's the short-term thing. I'm not gonna go into why sustainable. The cash flow makes sense. Total cost of ownership makes sense. It's if I want to have an idyllic site, I want to be coherent, you know, with the build. I want, you know, long-term value.
Yeah.
And I truly believe, like, if you look at the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, a third of their recovery package is going towards sustainable energy or sustainable projects. So in 20 years, so that's why I think it's a safer, basically, investment to invest in green / like, you know,
100%.
sustainable building.
I agree.
All right, next. Guiding principle, passive house. I'm not going to talk about you. Sure, I'm sure you know.
I know this stuff. Yep.
The thing though, what I want to do is a reverse coach house. So I want to start by building a house which is below 1,000 square feet, and I'm going to basically follow the guidelines so that it can become a coach house later on. Go ahead.
A coach house in Ottawa, I helped write the bylaw for the coach house in Ottawa.
Yeah.
It can be a maximum of 841 square feet.
But in rural area, it's bigger.
No. Be careful. We will talk about it in more detail.
Okay.
We just don't have time. But that's okay.
But the plan you see there,
it's fabulous.
It is 800 square feet.
Perfect.
768.
Perfect.
So basically, the site selection really important. I really want to find a nice site. Ideas how to animate. See, I copyright animate Bruce.
Beautiful. By the way, I'm all in favor of that. Steal away.
Yeah. So let's say we were going to go ahead with, let's say, I think it's 113 Dock Pond. You have a nice lot too on the lake. I like this one better. There's more space and there's more. The zoning is better because it's anyways. The point is. I would, again, steal your idea. I went and looked at your former student that created a nice company, yourtub.ca. This is awesome. That would probably be revenue stream number 2 and revenue stream number 3 before I build a house would be the garage that would end up being attached to the house, or you know what I mean?
Fabulous.
Less is more. That's like guiding principle, right? Animate, got it from you, and I'm gonna on how we could make this work. Less is more. This is like more my dad's a designer.
I agree with that.
You know, I'd like to explore maybe prefab and CLT construction. That's technical stuff you probably know about, cross-laminated timber. They build a lot in Europe with that. Discussion for another time. And probably it would be built on piles, maybe electrical piles, to basically disrupt the site the least possible. That's obviously, this is like I've started working on this when we talked on the phone, so this is really new. When I figured that I had an opportunity to find that I had found someone credible that was willing to mentor me, I said, Gus, go for it. And that's all of this came, or in my mind, actually, in the past 2 weeks. Okay, guiding person. I want to leverage my professional network. I have tons of people, electrician, HVAC people, professional. I want to leverage my network. One of which way that I think you're gonna like is I know a really good architect, really well-known architect that's a teacher, and I haven't.
Who is it?
It's Philippe Lupien.
Okay.
He did some TV, Philippe Lupien, and he's a landscape architect.
Yep. And
I would have his student do a competition for the site, the site, not the building, but how do we le développement du site là, au niveau de l'architectural paysager. Yes, so let's say also I'm quite fortunate to to have good friends that are environmental engineers. So let's say there's an environmental study. You know, it's not as big of a problem for me than some other people. Market fit. So one of the idea I had was basically, you know, corporate rentals. Let's say a big company like Deloitte or Nokia, it's probably 8 minutes away from their headquarters, or their, not their headquarters, but their building. They could be good renters. Why do I need to be creative? Because I'm not a millionaire yet. And private investor strategy. On this particular lot, you probably know the gentleman. I haven't met him yet. I wanted to speak to you first about, but I would try. The goal is, I got from the realtor, I got the impression that this family that owns 113 are really in love with the lot. They love the site. I ask a lot of questions, unusual questions, let's say, to the realtor, which is Liz. Maybe you know her. And I found out basically possibly a unicorn in terms of seller. And we come full circle with the story about my dad and his place.
So who is the seller that we're talking about here? Is it Michael?
I'm not sure. I've not met him. I wanted to speak to you first to see how crazy my ideas were before doing anything else.
Yeah. So I can you send me, after this is over, can you send me the listing for this lot that you're looking at?
Yeah.
Because I think it's a pretty expensive lot. What's the asking price on it?
400.
Yeah, it was for sale last year for 300,000.
Yeah.
But listen, I know, you know who developed this area, right?
You did.
I did, and that lot is by far the most beautiful lot. I know the owner, and so one of the things that you and I might be able to do is we might be able to get it out of him for $300,000, might. And we might also be able to get a big seller take-back mortgage from him, because he's quite wealthy. He's an Englishman. I've forgotten his last name, but it's on my computer somewhere. So I think, you know, maybe $300,000 or $350,000. And you know what a seller take-back mortgage is, right?
It is basically, he's financing that was my strategy. I wanted him to be like basically a private investor.
Well, no, we would just ask him. We would just ask him for a big seller take-back mortgage. What we would do is we'd say, look, Gus will give you $50,000 down, and he'll pay you the rest later.
Okay, that's as easy as that.
Yes, I think I can convince him to do that. You know, I sold him the lot originally. That lot to me is the most beautiful. There's two lots in Dunrobin Lake that are absolutely extraordinary. One is not for sale, and this one I know is. And I'm pretty sure we could get it out of Michael, maybe 300, but maybe 350,000, kind of $50,000 or $60,000 cash down, which you can afford, and then you pay the rest over time. And so send me the listing, okay? And so can I give you my sales pitch, okay?
Yeah.
So if you would like some coaching from me, before COVID-19 hit, I was charging $1,500 a month plus HST. But after COVID-19 hit, I reduced that to $850 a month. So you would have to budget $850 a month plus HST for 6 months. So what I do is I coach people. I don't want to coach people forever. You know, forever is too long. Because coaching has a value proposition that kind of goes like this, and then it peaks, and eventually it goes like that. And you want to sort of coach for till you get to that plateau and then stop. So I would coach you for 6 months, and you'd have to budget $850 a month plus HST. We would meet once a month on Zoom for 2 hours, very intense session. And you would have to provide me with a detailed agenda, because I coach some of my former students who are buying their first investment property. I coach a couple of billionaires, and everybody's different. So your agenda is very important to me, and you'd have to provide me with your agenda 3 days before each coaching session. All right.
Perfect.
And then I add some things to it, but obviously, you know, it's very important for me to hear what you have to say. Now, I have to tell you, if I do get a chance to coach you, you are not going to talk for 2 hours and I'm not going to listen for 2 hours. We're going to have a conversation, right? So it'll be more equal. Like today was mostly you, which is fine. But in a coaching session, it's partly me and partly you. So you have to prepare an agenda. You have to be prepared to spend 2 hours during the coaching session. Then I have a course that I've recorded, a 6-month-long course. It's all recorded on YouTube. It's all unlisted, that I would ask you to do. It's a very intense course. If you do that course, it takes about 6 months to do it. There's lots of lectures, lots of assignments. But if you do that course, Gus, at the end of that 6 months, you are already a very, very good real estate person, but you will be among the best trained real estate investors in the world after that course. But you've got to do the course and you've got to make the commitment to do it. And there is a final exam at the end of the course, which you have to get 75% or higher to pass. You'll have no problem. You will certainly ace that. But I do want you to do the course because it's a very, very good course. It's called the Ninja Real Estate Investor Course. And it's extremely, extremely time consuming, but very, very, very good. In addition to that, I ask everybody I coach, I hold you accountable. So I ask you to do a mid-month report. I don't want you to just have a coaching session with me and then I don't hear from you for a month. So what I do is I ask you to provide me with a mid-month report. So part of coaching is holding you accountable, like the military does. Your commanding officer holds you accountable. I'm not your boss, but I do hold you accountable, and I want a mid-month report, which then I will comment on. And then in addition to that, I ask all of my clients to put Zoom on their smartphones so that if you're having a meeting with an engineer, with an investor, if you're looking at a new property, I can drop in on those meetings, in 15 or 20 minutes and make some kind of a contribution, which I think is really important. And those are kind of ad hoc meetings. They happen when and if they're needed. Now, after you finish coaching with me in 6 months, I don't cut you off. I still want to hear from you, but so I provide a text and email support service for everybody I've coached. So if you have a question, what I do is I ask people, Gus, not to call me, because if you have a few thousand clients and they all call me every day, I'd never get anything done. So unless your house is burning down, you can call me if your house is burning down. But other than that, you text or email me if you have an issue or a problem, whatever. Now, I've been coaching long enough that if at some time in the future you needed another month of coaching, you can always come back for another month or two of coaching if you need it. And that does happen from time to time. But that's kind of the program. The only other thing that you would need to know is that you are allowed to add a +1 at no additional cost. So if you wanted Lorraine to join one of the meetings, or if you had a realtor that you wanted to join one of our sessions, anybody, your dad, your architect, you're welcome to do that.
Perfect.
So can you think about what we've talked about today? You owe me an email, don't forget, on the listing. And if you would like some coaching from me, just drop me an email. And I've got a 2-page coaching agreement. I'll send it to you. And if you want some coaching, you can sign it and send it back to me, and we'll get going.
Perfect.
All right. I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this, and I wish we had more time. But we did go about 50% over time, so I think that was okay.
It was great, and I'll definitely get in touch right after. I'll send you the listing.
Send me the listing.
So one thing I can tell you right now is
yeah.
I want your mentorship. For a minute, like the lady you see, Major General Carignan, she has been a great mentor for me.
Yeah.
That it's in the CAF that I've realized the value of mentorship.
Oh, for sure.
So there's no price to the mentorship that I think you're going to provide me.
I think that's right, and I can tell you that for me, this isn't really about money because I don't charge very much. It's really about creating a cohort of young people and some not so young people who are committed to the mission, and the mission is to really change the world. And I am moving the marketplace. I am impacting real estate throughout Canada and the United States. And I now have my first overseas clients. I have one in Melbourne and two in Stockholm. So I get a chance to also have some influence overseas. But in Canada and the United States, I am changing the industry quite noticeably. And you'll start to see it when we do some coaching together. So send me the listing. And if you want coaching, put it in that email, yes. And
yes.
then I'll do, but put it in the email so I have it in writing. And I will then send you a coaching agreement. And I can tell you, Major, it would be a great pleasure, un grand plaisir. I got to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
All the best.
À la prochaine.
À la prochaine.